There are two ways to get rich. One is through hard work, luck, and prayer. The other is faster. It begins with a profane ritual on the holiest of nights. It requires a specific kind of egg, incubated not by a hen, but by the warmth of a man's own desperation. And it ends with the birth of something that is not a bird, but a banker from hell. This is the story of a man who, facing ruin, chose the second path. He bought himself a devil, kept it in a bottle, and fed it blood in exchange for unimaginable wealth. But every deal has fine print, and in this pact, the price of his fortune would be his family, his sanity, and his soul. To understand how a man can fall so deeply into the clutches of evil, we must first know who he was before the darkness consumed him. Onel Jacinto Vasconcelos. The title Coronel was not military, but an honorific common among the wealthy landowners of Imperial Brazil. At 40, Jacinto was everything a man of the second reign aspired to be. He owned land. He had a family. He commanded respect. His farm, located on the fertile slopes of the Paraíba Valley, was strategically positioned on the route between Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo. During the height of the coffee cycle in the 1850s, this region was the economic heart of Brazil. Brazilian coffee fueled Europe and America, and the coffee barons, as Jacinto aspired to be, were practically kings. But Jacinto was not a baron. Not yet. He had inherited the farm from his father, an austere and hardworking man who built the business brick by brick, coffee plant by coffee plant. Jacinto grew up among the coffee fields, knew every piece of that land, every spring, every shadow of the ancient trees that marked the property's borders. And he loved his family. Isabel Vasconcelos, his wife, was known throughout the region for her kindness. At 35, she was the soul of that house. She dedicated herself to charity work, visited the sick among the farm workers, and taught catechism to the settlers' children. Her Catholic faith was unshakable. She saw the hand of God in everything, from the sunrise over the coffee fields to the smiles of her children. The children. Miguel, the firstborn, was 12, a curious boy who followed his father around the farm, learning the business, asking questions about every aspect of coffee cultivation. Jacinto saw in him the future, the heir who would carry the Vasconcelos name forward, and Ana Clara, the youngest, at only 8, a radiant child who ran through the corridors of the main house, filling every room with laughter. Isabel said Ana was a gift from God, a ray of pure light. This was the Vasconcelos family, an ordinary family, a happy family, or so it seemed, because beneath the surface of this domestic happiness, something was rotting, slowly, silently. And that rot had a name, debt. To understand what drove Jacinto to despair, we must understand the world he lived in. The Brazil of the 1850s was a nation built on brutal contrasts. On one side, the coffee elite amassed unimaginable fortunes. On the other, enslaved Africans and their descendants worked to death in the coffee fields. It was an economy of extremes. You were either rich or you were destitute. There was no middle ground. Coffee was called green gold, and like all gold, it attracted both dreamers and demons. But coffee was also volatile. A single plague could destroy an entire crop. A prolonged drought could turn a rich man into a beggar in a matter of months. The international market fluctuated wildly, and the banks had no mercy. Jacinto knew this. His father had always warned him, never go into debt beyond what you can pay with one harvest. Never trust your fortune to forces you cannot control. But Jacinto didn't listen. In truth, he had reasons not to. The 1850s were prosperous. Brazilian coffee dominated the markets. Prices were high. Everyone around him was expanding, modernizing, getting richer. So Jacinto did what any ambitious man would do. He took out loans. He bought more land. He invested in new processing equipment. He hired more workers. He was building an empire. And then the curse began. First came the drought. Not an ordinary drought, but a prolonged, relentless one. The skies seemed made of bronze. Week after week, month after month, no rain fell. The thirsty coffee plants began to wither. The leaves turned yellow. The earth cracked. Then came the rust, a fungal plague that spread through the coffee fields like fire. Where the rust touched, the plants died. Jacinto watched, helpless, as years of work were destroyed in weeks. And then, as if God himself had turned his face away from that land, the creditors came calling. Jacinto's debts were overwhelming. He had bet everything on future harvests that now didn't exist. The banks didn't care about droughts or plagues. They wanted their money. And if Jacinto couldn't pay, they would take everything. The farm, the house. His name died at 40 years old. Jacinto Vasconcelos was on the brink of absolute ruin. It was on a March evening that Jacinto made the decision that would damn his soul. It was Good Friday, the most sacred day in the Catholic calendar. The day Jesus Christ died on the cross for the sins of humanity. A day of mourning, of reverence, of silence. Isabel was in the farm's chapel, praying. The children with her. The entire estate was observing the holy day. Everyone, except Jacinto, he was in his office, locked away. A single candle cast dancing shadows on the walls. On his desk, there was a book, not the Bible, not an accounting ledger, but something else, something forbidden. No one knows exactly where Jacinto found that book. Some say it was from an old African slave who practiced ancestral religions in secret. Others claim it was from a gypsy peddler who passed through the region, selling more than just fabrics and utensils. But the book existed, and in it, a ritual was described. A ritual to summon an entity that could grant limitless wealth. The price? Well, every pact has a price. The ritual required specific components. First, an egg, but not just any egg. It had to be the egg of a black hen, and not just any black hen, but one that had never been baptized with holy water. A crucial detail, a profane detail. Jacinto had prepared everything meticulously. Days before, he had identified the hen. He had waited patiently for it to lay, and when the egg appeared, he took it before anyone saw. The ritual specified the egg had to be hatched, but not by a hen, by a human. For 40 days and 40 nights, Jacinto would need to carry that egg under his armpit, keep it warm with the heat of his own body, and for all that time, he could not speak to anyone. Absolute silence, not a single word. 40 days, like Jesus in the desert, like Moses on Mount Sinai. But this was not a journey of purification. It was a journey of corruption. Jacinto began the ritual that Good Friday. Isabel noticed immediately that something was wrong. Her husband, always communicative, had become mute. He avoided her. He avoided the children. He spent long hours locked in his office or wandering alone through the empty fields. She tried to talk to him, begged him to share his burden, but Jacinto would only look at her with empty eyes and walk away. The farm hands whispered, "The boss has gone mad," they said. Despair has broken him, but Jacinto was not mad. He was determined. Day after day, he carried the egg. He felt its strange warmth against his skin. Sometimes, he swore he could feel something moving inside, something alive, something that shouldn't exist. The nights were the worst. Jacinto barely slept. When he closed his eyes, he saw things, shadows that should have no form, whispers and languages he didn't know. And always, the feeling that something was waiting, watching, growing. On the 40th day, everything changed. Jacinto was alone in his office when he felt it. The egg was different, warmer, pulsating, and then, through the shell, he heard it, a sound. Not a chirp, not a scratch, but something that sounded almost human. A laugh, low, malicious. The shell began to crack. Jacinto, with trembling hands, placed the egg on his desk. He watched, fascinated and terrified, as the crack spread, and then, with a wet, obscene sound, the shell broke open. What emerged was not a chick. It was small, the size of a thumb, but it was definitely not a bird. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, skin as dark as charcoal, eyes that glowed with a hungry, red light, and when it opened its mouth, it revealed rows of tiny, sharp teeth. The devil of the coin had been born. The creature looked up at Jacinto, and it spoke. Its voice was thin, high-pitched, but unmistakably intelligent. "Master," it said, "at last, what is your desire?" Jacinto swallowed hard. His heart was beating so fast he thought it would explode. But he had come too far to turn back. "Wealth," Jacinto whispered, breaking his 40-day silence. "I want wealth. I want to save my farm. I want my family to never know poverty." The creature smiled. It was the most terrible smile Jacinto had ever seen. "Granted," the imp said, "but there are rules. You must feed me rooster's blood every day, and you must keep me hidden. No one can see. No one can know. If anyone finds out, the pact is broken." "And the price?" Jacinto asked, though he dreaded the answer. "The price," the creature laughed. "You will find out. In time. Everything has a price, master, especially wealth. Jacinto should have stopped there. He should have destroyed the creature. He should have begged God for forgiveness, but he did in single quotes T. Instead, he took a small, black glass bottle, a Vintém bottle, sold at fairs for worthless coins. He placed the creature inside, sealed it with wax, and hid it in a secret drawer of his desk. The pact was made, and that night, for the first time in months, it rained. The change was immediate and impossible. The morning after the ritual's completion, the farmhands woke to a spectacle that defied all logical explanation. The earth, which had been dry and cracked for months, was damp. But not just damp, it was saturated, as if it had been raining for days. But the strangest part, the rain had fallen only on the Vasconcelos farm. The neighboring properties remained bone dry. The road that passed in front of the farm divided the worlds. On one side, fertile, green land. On the other, dust and death. Jacinto knew the truth, but he could not tell it. Every day, before dawn, he would lock himself in his office. He would retrieve the bottle from its hiding place, open it carefully, and feed the creature that lived inside, rooster's blood, fresh, warm. The imp would drink greedily, its little red eyes glowing with satisfaction, and afterward, it would whisper to Jacinto secrets: where to dig to find water, where the land was most fertile, how to cure the sick plants, how to manipulate the market prices. The farm began to prosper in ways that defied nature. The coffee plants, which had been dying, revived overnight. Not just revived, but flourished as never before. The beans were larger, redder, more abundant. The quality was so superior that buyers came from far and wide, offering absurd prices. Jacinto found a new spring on his property, a spring that had never existed before. Pure, crystalline, inexhaustible water. While his neighbors watched their wells run dry, Jacinto had water to spare, and then came the discoveries. One of his workers stumbled upon something while plowing a field: stones, but not ordinary stones. Rose quartz crystals, valuable, sellable, another time. During a renovation of one of the old farm buildings, they found gold coins, a hidden treasure that no one knew existed. It was as if the land itself was returning wealth to Jacinto. In 6 months, he paid off all his debts. In a year, he had doubled the size of his property. In 2 years, Coronel Jacinto Vasconcelos was one of the wealthiest men in the Paraíba Valley. His house was renovated. European furniture arrived from the port of Rio, Venetian crystal, Persian rugs, Chinese porcelain. The farm became a palace. The neighbors were perplexed, envious, suspicious. How did he do it? They would ask among themselves. The drought destroyed all of us. How did his farm prosper? Some speculated it was luck. Others, some secret agricultural knowledge. The more superstitious whispered of black magic, of sorcery, of pacts with dark forces. But no one knew the truth. No one, except Isabel. Isabel Vasconcelos was no fool. She knew her husband better than anyone, and she knew that something was terribly wrong. After Isabel's death, her diary was found hidden in her room. The pages, written in an increasingly trembling and desperate hand, revealed the terrifying truth of what happened inside that house. I will read some excerpts for you. These are the words of a woman who watched her husband make a pact with the devil and was powerless to stop him. Entry, April 15, 1861. Jacinto is speaking again. His bizarre silence, which lasted 40 days, has finally ended. I should be relieved, but I am not. There is something different about him now. His eyes, they are empty, as if the person I loved has left, and something else has taken his place inside the shell of his body. He smiles. He speaks to the children. He kisses me at night, but they are mechanical gestures, soulless, as if he is playing the part of a husband and father, but has forgotten the lines. And there is the bottle, a small, black glass bottle that he carries with him always. He thinks I don't notice, but I do. He touches it constantly, as if it were a talisman. In his pocket, on the table beside the bed. Sometimes, late at night, I see him holding it, looking at it with an expression I can only describe as fear. What is in that bottle? Jacinto, what are you hiding from me? Entry, June 3, 1861. The farm is unrecognizable. The prosperity has come so quickly, it feels unnatural. Our neighbors, struggling with the drought, ask how we've managed. Jacinto just smiles and says it is God's blessing, God's blessing. I pray every day. I beg God for answers, but he remains silent. Or perhaps he is speaking, and I am afraid to listen. Last night, I heard something coming from Jacinto's office. It was late. Everyone was asleep, but I was restless, unable to find peace. I went downstairs. The office door was ajar, and through the crack, I saw Jacinto was sitting at his desk. The bottle was open before him, and he was talking to it. No, not to it, to something inside it. I could not hear the words, but I heard the reply. A voice, thin, high-pitched, not human. Something laughed. I ran back to my room. I locked the door, and I wept until dawn. My husband is speaking with demons. Entry, August 20th, 1861. Miguel is sick. It started 3 days ago. A fever. The town doctor came, examined him, but cannot explain the cause. He bled the boy, as is the custom, but the fever does not break. Miguel is delirious. He speaks of shadows, of something small and black that sits on his chest at night, stealing his breath. He says it has red eyes. I told Jacinto. He just nodded and returned to his office, to his work, to his damn bottle. He doesn't even seem worried. How can a father not be worried when his son is dying? Unless he already knows. Unless he expected this. God, forgive me for thinking such things about my husband. But I am afraid. So afraid. Entry, September 2nd, 1861. Miguel died this morning. I held his hand as he slipped away. His body, once so vibrant and full of life, was cold. His lips, blue. His eyes, glassy, stared at something I could not see. In his final moments, he whispered, "Mama, the little black man is here. He says it's time to go." What little black man? What madness had the fever put in his mind? Or was it not madness? We buried Miguel in the family cemetery. The entire estate came to pay their respects. Everyone, except Jacinto. He stayed in his office, locked away, with that damn bottle. I hate him. I hate what he has become. I hate that our wealth has cost the life of our son, because I know, in the depths of my soul, I know this was not a natural illness. This was a payment. My son was sacrificed on the altar of Jacinto's ambition. Miguel's death was only the beginning. 2 months after the funeral, it was Ana Clara's turn. The girl had grown quiet after her brother's death. She no longer played. She no longer ran through the halls. She would spend hours sitting in her room, staring out the window at the coffee fields. Isabel tried to cheer her up. She read her stories. She sang her lullabies. But Ana seemed to be fading, not physically, but spiritually, as if a part of her essence had been drained away. And then it happened. It was a sunny afternoon. Ana was playing near the main house. Isabel was inside, sewing. The workers were in the fields. Suddenly, a scream. Isabel ran outside, and she found a scene that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Ana Clara was on the ground, next to one of the old farm wells. A well that had been covered and sealed for years because it was deep and dangerous. But the cover was open, and Ana was dead. Her neck was broken at an impossible angle. The workers ran to help. They all had the same question. How had the cover opened? It had been nailed shut, sealed. It would have required force and tools to remove it. How could an 8-year-old child have done that? And more importantly, why was Ana near the well? She knew the danger. Isabel had always warned her to stay away. It was as if she had been lured there. Isabel looked up at the house, and she saw Jacinto in his office window, watching, and in his hands, that damn black bottle. Their eyes met, and Isabel saw something in that gaze that froze her to the bone. Guilt, but not surprise. He knew this would happen. That night, Isabel confronted her husband. She stormed into the office where Jacinto hid. Her dry tears had given way to a cold, determined fury. "What did you do?" she demanded. "What have you done to our children?" Jacinto looked up from his desk. The bottle was in front of him. He touched it, lightly, as if seeking comfort from it. "It was necessary," he said, simply. "Necessary?" Isabel laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "Sacrificing our children was necessary? You don't understand." Jacinto stood up. "We were ruined. Everything my father built, everything I promised you, the children, it was all falling apart. I had no choice. There is always a choice." Isabel screamed. "You could have accepted poverty. You could have sold the farm. You could have started over. But instead, you made a deal with the devil." Jacinto did not deny it. He couldn't. "Show me," Isabel demanded. "Show me what's in that bottle. Show me what was worth the lives of our children." For a long moment, Jacinto just looked at her, and then, slowly, He took the bottle. He removed the wax seal, and he showed her Dot. Isabel looked inside, and what she saw made her recoil in horror. A creature, small, black, with eyes that glowed with an infernal light. And when the creature saw Isabel, it smiled, a smile full of malice and terrible knowledge. "Hello, madam," the creature said, its voice thin and high-pitched. "Your children were delicious. Their souls so pure, so innocent. They struggled, you know, but in the end, they all give in. They all come to me." Isabel fell to her knees. The devil's words confirmed her worst fears. "Why?" she whispered, looking at Jacinto through her tears. "Why did you do this?" "To give you everything," Jacinto answered, and his voice was broken. "So that you would never know hunger, so that we could live like kings. I did it for you, for us. I didn't want this." Isabel screamed. "I didn't want your blood-stained treasures. I wanted my children. I wanted my family." Jacinto sealed the bottle again. His eyes were red, but he did not cry. Perhaps he no longer could. Perhaps the pact had stolen even his ability to feel true remorse. "It's too late," he said. "The pact is made, and there is one more payment to be made." Isabel stared at him, and her blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" But Jacinto did not answer. He simply sat down again, holding the bottle, looking at it with a vacant expression. And Isabel understood the devil wasn't finished. There were still more sacrifices to be made. She fled from the office, ran to her room, and she wrote frantically in her diary, knowing she didn't have much time. Last entry, November 5th, 1861. This will be my last entry. I can feel it. The darkness is closing in around me. For the past few days, I have felt a presence, following me, watching me. When I look over my shoulder, there's nothing, but I know it is there. The imp, the devil of the coin, he is coming for me now. I'd have tried to pray. I went to the chapel. I knelt before the crucifix, but the words will not come. It is as if something is blocking my connection to God, as if the presence of evil in my house has severed the line between earth and heaven. Jacinto avoids my gaze. He knows, he always knew that we would all be the price. If anyone finds this diary, please know the truth. Coronel Jacinto Vasconcelos made a pact with a demonic entity, and the price of that pact was his family. Miguel died first, then Ana Clara, and now I will be next. May God have mercy on our souls, and may he never forgive Jacinto for what he has done. Forgive me, my children. Mama is coming to join you soon, and this time, nothing will separate us. Isabel died 3 days later. Officially, it was recorded as a sudden fever, but those who prepared her body told a different story. Her expression, they said, was one of absolute terror. Her eyes, wide open, stared at something only she could see. And in her hand, clutched so tightly they had to break her fingers to remove it, was a rosary. The beads were scorched, as if someone had held a flame against them. With Isabel's death, something inside Jacinto Vasconcelos shattered. The farm continued to prosper. The coffee grew abundantly. Money flowed like water. But Jacinto no longer cared. He had gotten what he wanted: wealth, power, respect. But he had lost everything that truly mattered. The farmhands noticed the change immediately. The boss, who once walked the fields overseeing everything, now rarely left his office. When he did appear, he was pale, with deep, dark circles under his eyes, his hair prematurely turning white. He talked to himself, constantly. At night, people would hear voices coming from the office. Jacinto's voice, pleading, sometimes screaming, and another voice, that thin, high-pitched voice that belonged to no human. "You promised it would only be about the business," Jacinto would scream. "You said you would give me wealth, and I did," the imp's voice would reply, always with that tone of cruel amusement. "You are the richest man in the valley. I'd have fulfilled my part of the bargain, but you took my family." Yes, the price. I told you there would be a price. You didn't ask what it would be. That was your failure, not mine." These conversations happened every night, and with each one, Jacinto seemed to grow more desperate, more broken. He tried to get rid of the bottle. Legend says there is only one way to free oneself from the devil of the coin. You must sell the bottle to someone else. But there are rules. You must sell it for less than you paid, and the buyer must know what they are buying. Jacinto hadn't bought the bottle. He had summoned it. That made everything more complicated. Still, he tried. First, he tried to simply dispose of it. He buried the bottle deep on his property, in a remote place where no one would find it. The next morning, The bottle was back on his desk. He threw it in the river. The waters engulfed it. He watched until he was sure it had sunk. The next day, it was waiting for him on his pillow. He tried to break it. He struck it with a hammer. The bottle didn't even have a scratch. He tried to burn it. The fire would not touch it. The devil of the coin was bound to him, forever. As the months passed, Jacinto sank deeper and deeper into paranoia. He trusted no one. He fired most of the workers, keeping only the bare minimum. He locked the doors of the main house. He covered the windows. The mansion, which had once been a place of beauty and life, became a mausoleum. He stopped eating properly. His skin took on a sickly, jaundiced hue. His body, once strong and robust, withered. He looked like a walking corpse. And the bottle, always the bottle. He carried it with him at all times. Even when he slept, he kept it under his pillow. He would caress it obsessively, as if it were the only real thing in his world. The neighbors began to avoid him completely. When they saw him in town, they would cross the street to avoid passing near him. There was something about him, they said, something wrong. A presence that made horses shy and dogs howl. The children were especially afraid of him. They would run when they saw him approach, as if they could sense the curse that surrounded him. And perhaps they could. Children, they say, are more sensitive to the supernatural. They see what adults cannot, or will not, see. Jacinto began to have visions. He saw his children, Miguel and Ana Clara. They would appear in the corridors of the house, in the fields, in the cemetery where their bodies rested. But they were not the children he remembered. They were corrupted versions of them. Their clothes were torn and caked with dirt. Their skin was pale, with patches of decay. Their eyes were empty and accusing. "Why, Father?" Miguel would ask, his voice distorted, unnatural. "Why did you sell us? We trusted you," Ana Clara would cry, tears of blood running down her cheeks. "And you gave us to the demon." Jacinto would scream for them to go away. But they never left. They were always there, in the corners of his vision, waiting. And Isabel. God, Isabel was the worst. She would appear in his room at night. She would sit on the edge of the bed, looking at him with those eyes that had once been full of love, but now showed only despair and betrayal. "You could have saved us," she would whisper. "But you chose gold over us. You chose the devil over God, and now you are damned, just like us." "No," Jacinto would scream. "I did it for you, so we could have a better life." But Isabel would only shake her head, sadly. "No, Jacinto, you did it for your pride, for your greed, and now we will all pay, forever." In the winter of 1862, a young priest arrived in the region. His name was Miguel, coincidentally, the same name as Jacinto's deceased son. Father Miguel was new to his ministry, full of faith and a determination to save souls. When he heard the stories about Coronel Vasconcelos, about the cursed farm and the man who had sold his soul, he decided to intervene. He believed that no soul was beyond redemption, that even the blackest sinner could be saved through true repentance and God's grace. He was about to discover that there were things in this world that defied even the strongest faith. Father Miguel arrived at the farm on a rainy afternoon. The property was surprisingly well kept, the fields still green and fertile, the buildings intact. But there was a quality to the atmosphere, a feeling of weight, of darkness, that made him shudder. He knocked on the door of the main house. No one answered. He knocked again. "Coronel Vasconcelos, I am Father Miguel. I have come to offer comfort and spiritual counsel." Silence. He was about to leave when he heard it. A sound from inside the house. Not quite words, but something between a moan and a sob. The priest tried the door. It was unlocked. He entered. The interior of the house was like stepping into a tomb. The curtains were drawn, blocking all light. The air was stale, with a strange smell, part mold, part something sicker that he couldn't identify. Expensive furniture was covered in dust. Family portraits hung crookedly on the walls. And there were candles, dozens of them, some lit, others melted into pools of wax on the floor. "Coronel Vasconcelos?" The priest called out, his voice echoing in the empty halls. "Go away," came a hoarse reply from somewhere in the house. "You can't help me. No one can." The priest followed the voice to an office on the second floor. The door was ajar. What he saw inside shocked him to his core. Jacinto Vasconcelos was sitting behind a large mahogany desk, but he barely looked human. His face was gaunt, his eyes sunken in their sockets. His beard had grown wild, dirty, and matted. His clothes, which had once been fine, were torn and stained, and in his hands he clutched a small, black bottle. Coronel, the priest said softly, approaching, I have come to help. I have heard of your tragedies, of the loss of your family, and I want you to know that God has not abandoned you. Even now, he extends his hand to you. Jacinto laughed. It was a horrible sound, without humor, only pure despair. God, he repeated, God abandoned me long before I abandoned him, when my fields dried up, when my plants died, when the banks came to take everything. Where was God then? God was testing your faith, the priest answered, and it is in adversity that, don't talk to me about faith. Jacinto interrupted, his voice rising. I had faith. My wife had faith. And where did it get us? To poverty, to shame, to ruin. He held up the bottle. So I found another way, a way that actually works. The priest looked at the bottle, and he felt something, an evil emanating from it, so palpable it was almost physical. His stomach churned. His skin crawled. What is that? He asked, though he feared the answer. This, Jacinto said, caressing the bottle, is my salvation and my damnation. And then he told him everything. For hours, Jacinto spoke about the ritual, about the egg, about the creature that emerged, about the pact, and about the terrible price he paid. Father Miguel listened, horrified. Everything he had been taught in the seminary, all the lessons about the devil and temptation, suddenly became terrifyingly real. You must destroy it, the priest finally said. You must break the pact, no matter the cost. You think I haven't tried? Jacinto screamed. You think I want to live like this? Seeing my dead children accuse me? Hearing this thing whisper in my head every night? He opened the bottle. The priest recoiled instinctively, making the sign of the cross. And from the bottle came that voice, high-pitched, malicious. Ah, a priest, the creature said. How delightful. It has been so long since I have tasted a holy man. Father Miguel began to recite a prayer of exorcism, Latin words he had memorized but never expected to have to use. The creature laughed. Your words have no power here, priest. This man invited me. He gave me permission. He is mine, by right. No man belongs to the devil, the priest declared, though his voice trembled. God is not here, the creature interrupted. This place belongs to me now. This land, this house, this soul. Jacinto closed the bottle again, unable to bear the creature's presence any longer. Go away, Father, he said, weary. I am beyond redemption, but you can still save your soul. Leave this house. Forget you saw me, and pray that no one else is ever as foolish as I was. Father Miguel did not forget. He couldn't. He returned to the farm several times in the following weeks, trying to convince Jacinto to repent, to seek forgiveness. But each time, he found the man more deteriorated, more consumed by the curse he had invoked. The last time the priest visited, on a cold March morning in 1863, he found Jacinto on his deathbed. The coronel had lasted 2 years since the pact, 2 years of wealth and torture, and now his body was finally giving up. He was in his bed, surrounded by candles. The room smelled of sickness and death, and still, even now, he clutched the black bottle. Father, Jacinto whispered when he saw the young priest. You came. Good. Father Miguel approached, holding a crucifix and a vial of holy water. Coronel, there is still time. Confess your sins. Repent truly. And God, in his infinite mercy, there is no mercy for me. Jacinto interrupted, coughing. Blood stained his lips. I sold my soul, willingly, voluntarily, and I killed my family in the process. What forgiveness could there be for that? God forgives all sins, the priest insisted. If you truly repent, but I don't repent, Jacinto screamed, with a surprising strength for someone so close to death. Do you understand? I don't repent. If I had to do it all over again, I would. The priest recoiled, shocked. It is the most horrible truth of all, Jacinto continued, tears streaming down his gaunt face. I love my children. I love my wife. But I love my pride more, my fear of poverty, my need to be somebody. And that is what condemns me. He looked at the bottle in his hands. This creature did not force me to do anything. It only gave me what I already wanted. And that is the true horror. The devil does not tempt us with things that are foreign to us. He tempts us with our own desires. Coronel, please, run. Father, Jacinto whispered. They are coming. Who? All of them. My wife. My children. And him. Jacinto glanced at the bottle. They have come to collect me, to take me down. And then, with the priest watching, Jacinto Vasconcelos began to scream. They were not screams of physical pain. They were screams of pure, soul-shattering terror, of someone seeing something that no human should ever see. No, he shrieked, please. I don't want to go. I don't want to. He thrashed on the bed, as if invisible hands were holding him down. The bottle fell from his grasp and rolled onto the floor. Father Miguel took his crucifix, holding it high. In the name of Jesus Christ, I command. But his words were cut off by a laugh, that high-pitched, terrible laugh coming from the bottle. Too late, priest, too late. And then, Jacinto Vasconcelos took his final breath. His body went rigid. His eyes flew open, staring at something above him or below. And then, slowly, terribly, a smile formed on his lips. It was not a smile of peace. It was a smile of absolute terror and acceptance. He was dead. Father Miguel made the sign of the cross over the body. He mumbled the final prayers, but he knew, in the depths of his soul, that it was no use. Jacinto Vasconcelos had been taken, and his fate was sealed. The priest looked around the room, searching for the bottle. It had vanished. There was no human trial for Jacinto Vasconcelos. How could there be? What earthly law could pass judgment on a pact made with a demon? But there was a judgment, a cosmic judgment, a trial that takes place not in the courts of men, but in the spiritual realms that exist beyond our perception. And the evidence of that judgment is etched into the folklore of the Paraiba Valley, in the stories passed down from generation to generation, growing and transforming, but always maintaining their terrible core of truth. Let me tell you what happened to the farm after Jacinto's death. Father Miguel, shaken by what he had witnessed, gathered the courage to organize the funeral. It was a simple ceremony, without pomp. Few attended. The family had been decimated, and the neighbors were afraid to associate with the Vasconcelos name. They buried Jacinto in the family cemetery next to Isabel, Miguel, and Ana Clara, together in death as they had been in life. But anyone who visited that cemetery would notice something strange. The first 3 tombs, those of Isabel and the children, were tranquil. Flowers grew around them. Birds sang in the nearby trees. There was a sense of peace, as if the souls there rested easily. But Jacinto's tomb was different. Nothing grew around it. The earth was always dark, as if permanently scorched. And at night, people swore they could hear sounds coming from beneath the ground. Scratches, moans, as if something was trying to get out, or perhaps as if something was trying to get in. And the farm became something out of a nightmare. Without anyone to manage it, it began to deteriorate rapidly. But this was not normal decay. It was as if nature itself was rejecting the place. The coffee fields, which had been so abundant, withered overnight. The plants rotted at their roots. The land, which had been fertile, became barren. Nothing would grow there anymore. The main house, that mansion Jacinto had decorated with treasures from around the world, began to crumble. The roof tiles fell. The windows shattered. The walls cracked. But the strangest part was what happened to those who tried to enter. Some adventurers, drawn by stories of hidden treasures, tried to loot the property. They all fled, terrified, before they could steal a thing. They told the same stories. Shadows that moved where no shadows should be. Voices whispering in empty rooms. And most terrifying of all, the feeling of being watched by something small, something with red eyes. One man swore he saw it. He said he was in Jacinto's old office when a small, black bottle rolled across the floor. He picked it up, curious, and from inside, he heard a voice. Want to make a deal? The man dropped the bottle and ran. He never went back, and, strangely, his life after that day was marked by bad luck. Businesses failed. Relationships fell apart. He died poor and alone a decade later, still muttering about red eyes and black bottles. The devil of the coin was still there, waiting, looking for his next master. The story of Jacinto Vasconcelos could have died with him. It could have been forgotten, just another tragedy among the many that occurred during the coffee cycle. But it wasn't. Instead, the story transformed. It grew. It became a legend. Mothers in the Paraiba Valley began to tell it to their children as a warning. See what happens to those who make pacts with the devil, they would say. See the price of greed. The legend of the devil of the coin spread throughout Brazil. Each region added its own details. In some places, the imp was red. In others, green. Some said it had horns. Others, that it had bat wings. but the core of the story remained the same. A desperate man summons a demon, receives wealth, and loses everything he loves. Anthropologists who have studied the legend have identified its roots in various traditions, elements of African folklore brought over by the enslaved, European superstitions about Faustian bargains, and indigenous beliefs about nature spirits. But those who know the true story of the Vasconcelos farm know that it is not just folklore. It is memory, dramatic memory, transformed into myth to make it bearable. The legend served an important purpose in 19th century Brazilian society. It was a veiled critique of the coffee barons, those men who built immense fortunes on the suffering of the enslaved. How did they get so wealthy? The people would whisper, surely they made a deal with the devil. And perhaps they had. Maybe not literally with a creature in a bottle, but metaphorically by selling their souls, their humanity in exchange for profit. The story of Jacinto was a mirror. It showed the rich what they truly were, and to the poor, it offered an explanation for the brutal inequality they saw around them. It wasn't just luck or hard work that separated the rich from the poor. It was a moral choice, and those who chose wealth over humanity would pay a price. Perhaps not in this life, but certainly in the next. But beyond the legend, beyond the symbols and metaphors, there were real people, real victims. Isabel Vasconcelos, a woman of deep faith who dedicated her life to charity and kindness. She did not deserve the fate she suffered. To watch her children die, to discover her husband had made a demonic pact, and then to die herself, terrified and betrayed. Isabel's diary, if it truly existed, is one of the most tragic documents in Brazilian history. Each entry shows a woman trying desperately to understand what is happening, fighting to protect her children from a force she cannot comprehend or combat. She failed, not for lack of love or effort, but because she was fighting something beyond human understanding. Miguel Vasconcelos, a 12-year-old boy who should have grown up to take over his father's farm, to build his own family, to live a long and full life. Instead, he was consumed by a mysterious fever, delirious about a little black man who had come to collect him. Imagine the terror of a child who knows he is dying, who sees something that no one else can see, who begs his parents for help, but there is no help to give. Ana Clara Vasconcelos, 8 years old, a child who should have been playing, laughing, living. She died with a broken neck next to a well, lured there by something we will never fully understand. These were not just characters in a legend. They were people, real children with dreams and fears and hopes, and they were sacrificed on the altar of their father's ambition. And Jacinto? It is easy to see him only as the villain, the man who sold his soul and destroyed his family. And he was that, but he was also a victim of his own greed, yes, of his pride, of his fear of failure, but also a victim of a brutal economic system that offered no mercy for the bankrupt, of a society that measured a man's worth by his wealth. Jacinto was not born evil. He became evil, choice by choice, fear by fear, until he finally made the one choice that could not be undone. And then he lived or existed with the consequences. 2 years of psychological torture, 2 years of seeing his dead children, 2 years of knowing he had traded everything he loved for blood-stained gold. When he finally died, he found no peace, only the damnation he had purchased for himself. So, what do we do with this story? This terrible legend of the devil of the coin? We can dismiss it as superstition, just another horror story told on dark nights. And maybe that's all it is. Maybe there never was a Coronel Jacinto Vasconcelos. Maybe there never was a cursed farm in the Paraíba Valley. But I don't believe that. I believe that at the core of this legend, there's truth. Maybe not literal truth, perhaps there wasn't really a demonic creature in a bottle, but emotional truth, moral truth. Because the story of the devil of the coin is really about something very human, the temptation to sacrifice our values in exchange for material success. How many of us, if we were put in Jacinto's position facing financial ruin, social shame, the loss of everything we've worked to build, would make different choices? How many of us can honestly say we've never prioritized money over family, career over relationships, success over integrity? The genius of the legend is that it makes these choices literal. It materializes the temptation into a creature you can see, touch, talk to, and it materializes the price in real deaths, real suffering. But in the real world, the devil doesn't show up with red eyes and a high-pitched voice. He shows up as a business opportunity, as a promotion that requires you to compromise your principles, as a shortcut that only requires you to look the other way. And the price? The price isn't literal deaths, but spiritual ones. The death of relationships, the death of our sense of self, the slow death of our humanity. Jacinto Vasconcelos sold his soul, but how many of us sell ours in installments? A small compromise here, a little betrayal there, until one day we wake up and realize we become someone we don't recognize. The Vasconcelos farm, they say, still exists. Its ruins can still be found somewhere in the Paraiba Valley, hidden among the overgrown brush that has reclaimed the land. No one lives there. No one dares. But on quiet nights, when the wind blows through the abandoned coffee fields, you can still hear it. A voice, then, high-pitched, calling, want to make a deal. And that voice is not just on that farm. It is everywhere, in every office, in every bank. In every moment we face a choice between what is right and what is profitable. The bottle is always offered, and the imp is always waiting. The question is, what will you choose?